I somehow managed to become from a 17-year-old homeless kid in Germany that didn't know shit to getting the agency up to 7 figures a month.
OnlyFans is by far the easiest, fastest, least risky millions I've ever made, but it is harder than it ever has been today. You can't just pick it up off the ground anymore. You actually have to work for it.
Out of 100 people starting OFM today, at least 90 will never make a substantial amount of money.
Oliver, pleasure to have you on the show, man.
Man, it's such a pleasure to be here. I've always watched this from the sidelines. So yeah, it's amazing to be here, man. Thanks for the invite.
Yeah, thank you for coming on. So for those of you that are watching, it's been a while since I've done one of these, so you'll have to pardon me if I'm a little bit rusty. For those of you that are somehow not familiar, Oliver is a fellow OFM content creator. He's been in the game a lot longer than I have. He's an agency owner. He's a consultant and coach. He has been in OFM for 6 years, a true industry veteran, and he has his own YouTube channel, which will be linked in the description and which you should definitely check out. So I'm particularly excited to have this conversation because it is very rare that I get to speak with other educators in the space. And it's always a pleasure to talk to a kindred spirit. So I really appreciate you being willing to come on, and I think we should just get right into it. What is your OFM origin story? How did you get introduced to this business?
First of all, the pleasure is all mine, brother. Now, the line I always use when people ask me this is I somehow managed to become from a 17-year-old homeless kid in Germany that didn't know shit to getting the agency up to 7 figures a month. And everything that happened in between there would probably not fit in a podcast, so I'll give you the short version.
Sure.
I started this whole thing completely on accident, right? I found it. It's always what I tell women. I founded multiple businesses, but that means I tried to make money and I didn't.
Yeah.
That's always the cool part. So without trying to look cool here, I tried a bunch of stuff, right? Moved out of my home when I was like 16 and a half, out of reasons that we don't have to go into the podcast. And then I found out about this concept of paying rent, which I wasn't aware of when I made the decision. So I was like, well,
it's not fun.
Yeah, a tough thing, I guess, to live somewhere and eat food and drink water. So I realized back then, I need to make some money. Tried everything throughout the books, right? I sold consulting for fighters because I was fighting Muay Thai back then. Thought that may be worth something. It isn't. And from then on, I'm not trying to give too much of a speech here, but I was in some network of like guys who go to the gym, try to make money online, right? We know the drill by now. And the richest person in there was making $4,000 a month, like on the side, right? With her business. For me back then, brother, right? $500 a month. And I was like, he makes 10 times that. Well, he must be a G. And then I saw someone who bought a Datejust with his business back in the day. Nowadays, Datejust, like they cost like $6,000, right? It's not that deep. But back in the day, man, fucking Datejust, that's like my yearly salary at this point. So I was talking to the guy who's like, yeah, I do OFM, and it couldn't have gotten any worse. So I was like, well, I might as well just sell titty pictures on the internet. I mean, I can't really fail more than I did. And that's how we ended up in this podcast, right? But that's how I like to describe it because it sounds so unsexy and so retarded. It's exactly how it started out. I had to learn all the lessons along the way because I thought I was this shit, but I wasn't. I had to try to systemize the entire agency throughout the way, but I guess it turned out kind of okay.
Kind of okay, yeah. Making $1 million a month on the agency side, plus whatever you did pulling in from consulting, info, mentorship type stuff, and we'll get into all of that. But I think part of the reason that I'm excited to have this conversation is that like that I think is a much more relatable story than my introduction to the industry, which also by accident, but like I'm an industrial engineer by trade. Like that's my professional background. Also got into the industry really purely by happenstance, but I was, I went through my teenage year, very similar story, left home at a young age, tried to do a bunch of stuff and make money in a bunch of ways that didn't really work. But OFM wasn't I made a lot of money prior to ever entering the industry. I think more people, especially younger people, people getting into this industry in their early 20s or even in their teens like you did, I think your story probably makes a lot more sense. And that's what we're going to get into today is kind of like scaling OFM at every single level. I kind of got to skip a few steps. You did not, right? You built everything absolutely from the ground up. And so that is going to be the core of our conversation. But before we get into that, I do want to ask a few more kind of personal questions. For my personal interest, why did you start doing YouTube? Like, why did you decide to start building a personal brand?
It's kind of interesting. And also there, I think we have a lot of different reasons why we build a personal brand. It makes sense on paper, right? I think like you would agree, personal brand is the best thing you can do. Yeah, 100%. I mean, you're the best example for that. Now, I built a Telegram group before that, right? I was getting into the space and I found out, okay, there's a lot of other agency owners I didn't know about. I thought I was the only one doing OFM. I thought I kind of tricked the system there, which wasn't the case. I started getting into the space, talked to a lot of people. And the first step was I was getting tired of telling everyone the same stuff. So you have to imagine I wasn't nearly as experienced or systemized or successful as I am now, but I still was at a completely different point than most agencies I talked to. And the problems they had for me were like the daily stand up in our agency. You get what I mean? Like it was very easy to fix. Like when you're big into the gym, right? Someone comes to you and says, I don't know how to do bench pressing. What? You just do it like this. And they're like, wow, oh my God, my muscles grow now. And you're like, that's it. Right. Without talking arrogantly here. I'm sure my old self was also an idiot. Now,
No, but I mean, 100%. I think it's something that every educator runs into is just like naturally, and especially in this industry, when you have a bunch of young entrepreneurs, people coming into the space, they all have the same questions. And it makes sense to like, okay, rather than just answer this every single fucking time, here's a YouTube video.
oh, yeah, for sure. And like my first idea to fix it was, well, let me just create a group of all the people I'm talking to simultaneously, just type it in once, and then I save myself 100 audios a day. And once that stopped working, because the group grew so massively, right? Because I wasn't selling a mentorship and I was selling like, I was always saying like, I won't sell a gay ass mentorship back then, right? Because I thought I was so cool saying that. And then I was like, well, let me just explain stuff in long form instead of a 2-minute audio. Might work. So that's how I got into the YouTube. But it would be interesting to hear about how you got into it because I think your story is like way more unique.
Yeah, I think for me, it was like coming out of, I knew that I didn't want to do management anymore. This is like September of last year. Um, I'm naturally, I just think, have like an educator's predisposition, let's say. I just have the temperament for it. And so I like entrepreneurs. I like entrepreneurship. I know a thing or two about OFM and specifically I don't think, and this is something that I think I get like, people have a weird perception of gurus in this space, and I definitely want to pick your brain on that too. I think the big thing that I run into is like when you position yourself as an expert in any industry, people assume that I know everything about OFM or that like my way is the correct way, and I've never said that, right? You probably know substantially more. Like if somebody was just entering the industry, I would point them towards your YouTube before that I would point them towards mine. So very different in that sense. And I knew I wanted to talk about organic social. I think that I have some kind of heterodoxical ideas about the industry. And I think that like so many agencies are completely failing at organic social, and there was a need to fill that gap. And I also knew that like in order to, my goal was to become a consultant. So like kind of the opposite of you, where it was like mentorship is gay. Like I don't want to do that. I understand that for sure. And I felt the same way about like course selling too. I was like, I never want to be a course seller, but I knew that I needed to build a personal brand in order to launch the consulting business, because who the fuck is going to like, you're not going to hire me as a consultant if you A, don't know I exist, and B, you have no idea if I know what I'm talking about. So what better way to demonstrate that I know what I'm talking about than, hey, I'm going to open source all this information that I have. If it works for you and it makes you money, give me a call and I'll make you more money. You know, it'll just be on a one-to-one basis, and we'll do structured implementation, and then things kind of evolved really quickly from there. But enough about me. So you started doing YouTube. How has the channel evolved since you started? Like you've obviously improved your YouTube game substantially since video one. What was the process of improvement like? How did you go about like topic selection? What's changed since day one of Oliver Small YouTube?
There's two main things that changed. I'm going to try to run through both of them like a bit more in detail because the first and most important thing that changed was me as a person. Because when I started this YouTube, it wasn't really about portraying myself as a brand necessarily. I just wanted to get info to my community as quickly as possible. And the videos just blew up naturally because
Yeah.
the space also like 2, 3 years ago was so different. There were no YouTubers. There were people recording like selfie videos in their car. And I was like, well, I have a camera. Surely my videos are going to be the best ones, which was the case. So I was very, because this is a side of my character, I'm not going to deny that. I was very unprofessional, making pretty edgy jokes because that's my humor, right?
Yeah.
Sue me. But what progressed is also I, as a person, went from fairly still just working in front of a MacBook, managing a small agency to kind of having to transform into an entrepreneur and a CEO myself. And you can also see that in my videos, the way I present things, the way I explain things. So you could say I matured as a person, but especially in the business level, because I started to really just trying to be more professional what I talk about and how I do it. On the other side, though, I noticed that, and this is going to be a harsh statement, out of 100 people starting OFM today, at least 90 will never make a substantial amount of money. Yeah, with all the courses, and I'm not saying they're bad, but the people are getting this image of OFM that it's this industry where you make some quick money, you just put the girl online, you sell some pictures, it's the easiest business ever. It's arguably the hardest. I'd love to hear your take on it, right? Arguably the hardest business right now of the bands. So I also started shifting away from beginner content
Sure.
because I was like, I can't help these people. I don't want to work with these people, and they
Yeah.
don't need info. The info is out there. They need implementation. But this is what everyone needs, and you can't force that on YouTube, right? So I also started only focusing on agencies, making at least 15 to 20 grand a month, helping them get to the 100 to the 150, and everything else is already out there in YouTube. And I don't want to compete with like the buy my $50 course to start OFM type of market because
Yeah, the
more
Marcus Hustle type.
for example, right? I'm sure
Yeah,
there's money
yeah.
in it. It's just not our playing field, right? We're trying to go above that.
Yes, for sure. I think no, I agree with that 100%. I think that's something that I'm encountering. You have obviously a pretty significant head start on me. So I think some of the problems, it's interesting because I started with the intermediate or like advanced level content, but I thought it was beginner content. So I like all of the stuff that I'm talking about with like
Little
organic
flex there.
social. From my perspective, it's like, oh, all of this is like pretty obvious and self-evident, and I kind of feel stupid that I am even saying it. But what I've come to realize over time is that like, I thought I was here and the industry was here. It turns out the industry is like, off camera below and I'm up here. And that's not because I'm super exceptional. It's because the bar is so extraordinarily low, specifically in the context of organic social. I would say when you started OFM, and like even when I started OFM, it was much easier than it is today. And that's just like a natural from my perspective, having been in a lot of other industries and having like been in business development and marketing and technology specifically, um, our adult moves so much faster than like fintech, for instance, moves glacially slow. I worked for, I don't want to like self-dox, but I worked for a really big crypto, like a Bitcoin ATM company. And the pace of growth was glacially slow because there's all these regulatory burdens that you have to deal with. It was like every single piece of marketing material that my team made had to go through legal. It had to go through, just all of these hoops that you have to jump through. And so as a consequence, the entire industry moves slow. With OFM, there's, it's kind of a gray hat industry to begin with. So, and there's no barrier to entry at all, right? With basically every other industry in the world, it's like you have some sort of legal moat or you have some sort of technology. Literally anybody can do OFM in terms of like what is required on a technological level. If you've got an iPhone and a laptop, you can do OFM basically. So I don't necessarily think that it's hard. I've made millions of dollars in other industries. OnlyFans is, and I've said this on camera before, OnlyFans is by far the easiest, fastest, least risky millions I've ever made. But that being said, it is harder than it ever has been today. And from my perspective, the message that I kind of want to get across to people is if you want to, there's still a fuck ton of money on the table. There's millions and millions of dollars to be made, but it's not like you can't just pick it up off the ground anymore. You actually have to work for it. You're going to have to actually dedicate yourself to, in my opinion, I think the best way for people to start is to dedicate themselves to the craft of making great organic content and growing creators vertically that way. I think that that's the easiest way to compete in today's media environment. I'd be curious on your thoughts on that. Like, what's your philosophy when it comes to content? How are you deciding like topics? What is it that you're trying to actually teach people? Like, what's your position on the industry that you're trying to share?
And it's interesting because on the one hand, there's also clips of me saying like, the industry isn't really getting harder. It was just so obscenely easy to make money 2 years ago, 3 years ago, 4 years ago. Now you need actual business skills to a certain degree, which is not kind of hard. But yeah, it being marketed as this easy thing with like, yeah, you can just start with a MacBook. That's like kind of the contradictory opinion there. And this is all, I think this is also one of the main ways I choose content nowadays because I went away from trying to teach people, hey, this is what you need to do step by step. This is important, which I
Yeah.
still do to a certain degree. But I'm more so focused on like back in the day, I can give you an example. I used to do videos saying how to do Instagram,
Uh,
which you, as someone who has been in the organic space, especially, you can't fit that in a video. It is impossible.
Not even close.
Even if I record a 100-hour video course, people would still miss things.
Yeah.
So that's when I kind of transitioned to, hey, I went super deep into it, right? This is how you fix your audience. This is how you even choose content. This is how you set up tracking. This is how you split test things, right?
Yeah.
Because even a 10-minute video is enough, but now people can do their own research. And I get less views, but the people who view it, they're actually applying it instead of just, oh, here's how you do Instagram. You post 2 times a day and like be aesthetic, have fun, right? And then everyone loves it. They feel productive, but the agency is still stuck on 20K and they want to,
Yeah.
they think it's
Yeah.
the marketing. No, how do you choose content? I'm actually curious.
So for me, I think I have a similar, I think, philosophy as you, where it's like, yeah, I could do 100, I could do 100-hour video or something. I mean, the course to some extent that I just launched is like everything that you need to know really to go from zero to, let's call it like 0 to 100, like 100K a month or something like that, in terms of all of the structural foundational principles and like understanding of what actually makes a good piece of content. So my entire approach to education is focused on, here are all of the principles. These are the evergreen principles that are always going to be true, not the, hey, use trial reels, like do XYZ. I think that especially in an industry that moves as quickly as OFM, trying a tactical approach to education is a terrible way to go, because 6 months from now, it doesn't matter if everything that you're saying is true today and like perfect and useful. 6 months from now, it's going to be irrelevant. It's going to be totally non-functional. If you're approaching from, hey, this is what you need to do to be successful today, in terms of like at a really high resolution tactical level. So my approach is more like, okay, how can I break down this core foundational principle of organic marketing in a way that it will always be true, irrespective of the platform. It doesn't matter if you're on, like, the way that I frame my content, it doesn't matter if you're on X, if you're on YouTube, if you're on Instagram, if you're on TikTok. Everything I say about the principles are going to be true cross-platform for all of time, because it's all about how to think like your customer, how to actually target an audience, target an actual ICP, and not just like everyone who masturbates, and like how to make good content. That's kind of my approach. And it's obviously like I have the benefit of, like, I've made it really clear I only talk about one thing. You are more like kind of broad. You talk about chatting, you talk about Instagram, you talk about X. So I'm curious how that you're covering I think a broader spectrum of topics than I do. So what does the actual selection process look like for you? How do you, like, when you're making a video, like I think you released one a couple of weeks ago that's like specifically about using X in 2026 as a marketing funnel. Why did you choose that topic? Like, how are you choosing specific video topics?
I mean, obviously, there's the obvious answer of the amount of questions I get to a certain topic, right? So that's obviously playing into it. I see a demand. For example, right now, IG bans are like the thing in the industry, right? Everyone
Yes.
likes to, yeah, everyone suffering from it. Everyone likes to complain about it, and everyone likes to have an opinion about it when they probably shouldn't. So outside of that, I'm just trying to treat my YouTube as a diary of my agency, right? Because there's always things that I discover, things that I learn, and opinions that change on my side. And I've quickly realized, well, if I just notice this now, average agency owner is probably going to take way longer to realize that. So let me help, right? If I change my Twitter strategy and it starts working, obviously I can ride the wave, but I can upload it immediately because there's like a contrary saying of people thinking, well, why would you make your methods public, right? If they work so well. Where, first of all, the videos, and you can 100% confirm this, the videos you upload on YouTube, that's surface level. That's the 5% on top that everyone can understand, but the magic behind it, you couldn't even put in a video, even if you wanted to. But otherwise, and this is something I'd like to also pick your brain about. Out of 100 agencies, at least 95 of them don't need a single percent more information. They just need to implementate what they already have. They have a whole desktop of PDFs, SOPs, videos. They all know it, right? So I also noticed it doesn't matter what I give out because people aren't going to implement it as fast or as good as, for example, we are. And it doesn't really fix their problem. It helps them, but out of 100 people that watch my video, maybe one is even doing it correctly, and that's no competition. So I can just upload what I'm doing on a daily basis. It helps. People like it, I guess.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I think especially for us, like, we have we have info products, right? What do you call your, like, do you call it mentorship or coaching? How do you frame it?
The name is OFM West, and I don't want to take away too much of the answer, but it's the OnlyFans modular operating system. So I don't want to even call it a mentoring because I think the name is very damaging the industry. But me and my team install our agency system in the agency that we work with over 16 weeks. and we work with the agency until we had to go, which
Got it.
actually happens quite fast. But we install a system, so you could call it a systemization, if you want to call it like that.
And so it's kind of like almost like the person that you're working with becomes sort of a franchisee in some sense?
That beautiful way to say it. Yeah.
Okay. I like that approach because obviously, like, I think that's beautiful because I'm assuming that there's some sort of like equity agreement there, like you're getting a percentage of the results that you deliver from them, or is it a flat rate? How does that? I'm curious about the.
I definitely have that with some agencies that I work with 100%. And the goal is to kind of get that going at least after half of the program, because as you know, we're both very serious who we work with. And there's agencies that need to prove themselves, right? Because it's a lot of risk on our end. So yeah, we have a flat fee in the beginning where the people start, we install the system. If we see the potential, we definitely come to the table. We're like, hey, let's partner up. Let's run these creators or the entire agency together. We obviously get a cut of the profit, which is the ultimate goal, right? This is why I don't have to charge, let's say, 100 grand or something like that to make it fully worth my team's time, my time. But I can say, hey, if I'm doing the right work, we get to be business partners, and now we're really making money. So
Yes,
it's a
I love
split.
that. I think for me, it's I'm not that I'm trying to like distance myself from the industry. It's more like I really want to limit the amount of time I actually spend like speaking to people. So I love that as a business. And it's actually, I don't know if you know Matt from Hive Media. He and I had an interesting conversation yesterday where he was like, he suggested a similar business model where it's like, you should just coach people on the implementation and then call it a franchise thing where they're running your sort of marketing system and you have some like marginal equity in the business after you've helped them achieve that implementation. For me, I like to be a little bit more hands off. I only want to work on things that I'm like deeply interested in. And so every now and then, like with the consulting business, for instance, I take on a tiny number of clients and I only work with people who have a creator that I'm like, okay, this brand would be an interesting puzzle to solve. I think that this person is like, has the capacity to make, potentially six or seven figures a month. And so when I encounter a creator like that, who I think is genuinely like talented and passionate and actually has something cool to say with her content, his or her content, I should say, those are the types of people that I work with on a consulting basis, but I encounter them so rarely that for me, my solution is you're getting really in the weeds, right? You're like helping people implement these systems. You have these like super, presumably these systems that you've spent an extraordinary amount of time and thought and effort into crafting, and you're actually helping people integrate those. I think that's an incredible business. My thing is basically like I want to teach people principles. I want people to be able to think about this business in a principled way because that's what served me, right? Rather than teach you how to like run a system, I want to teach people how to develop a system that makes sense for them. I can't teach like if I teach you my exact system the way that I implement it and in how it works in my brain, it's not going to work for you. It's not going to work the same way because you don't have my brain. That's not a slight, right? It's just like the reality of the situation is I think in a different way than you, not you specifically, but like you as in the greater you of my potential customers. I think differently than you. And the precise way that I implement my systems and my thinking and my craft isn't going to translate unless you think precisely the same way as me, which most people don't. So I think that all of it boils down to like the course is all about principled thinking. It's all of the tools that you need in order to be successful at organic marketing and build your own systems and your own like understanding of social media so that you can replicate your results you can create something that works for you that's replicable. And I give you all of the frameworks that you need to do that. But the actual implementation piece, I prefer to leave that in the hands of the client. So I think it's an interesting distinction in how we approach the business. And I wonder if that comes off in the content too.
Yeah, and the thing is that I'd like to really cover because you mentioned that, and that's I think one of the most, if not the most important thing for overall people, agencies listening to this, watching this. If you're picking a mentor, a consultant, systemizer, or franchisee, right? However you want to call it, like it is a good thing. You should do that, especially at a certain point. You're going to spend whatever amount of money, you're going to make more back. Makes sense. And even not working with you or me, but the two only things you should look for outside of, yeah, he makes money, he knows what he's talking about, is what you just said. The person actually selects who they work with. They don't just put 100 people in, yeah, 20 succeed, 20 testimonials. Every one of my students makes money, join today.
Yes.
Enough. But let them send you screenshots of the last 5 people they actually didn't take on. We're like, sorry, bro, it's just not for you. My
Yeah.
bad. I can't help you like that. And second of all, it's also, are they teaching a method or are they teaching the principle behind it? Because there's many people that find a way to make money on dating apps, AI over them, Instagram, right? Everyone has a working method. Oh, you have to post over this proxy like this. But the thing that's missing, and you know this because I know like you especially care about the details,
Yes,
right?
right.
What goes after that? Okay, you post like this, cool. It takes 5 minutes to set up. That's not the method. The method is what building blocks do you use for the video? Where do you find it? How do you set up the research account? It goes so deep, right? But
Yeah.
if you don't give that, unless you as the agency trying to look for a consultant, unless you are that dedicated to finding the info yourself, you're not gonna make it. And then why are you paying a consultant if you have to do all the work anyway, right? So that's the two things. Is the mentor gonna go the extra mile to teach you everything from A to Z? And are they actually interested in making sure you're the right fit? Because if the mentor accepts you within like 20 minutes, you probably it's a sales call, it's not a discovery call.
Not at all. Yeah, exactly. I think that's a great way to frame it for sure. And it's like, yeah, like on that note, I think most of my consulting clients are like well-established agencies who are already making 100K plus per month because quite frankly, like that's kind of what's required to afford my services for the most part. And they're specifically looking to improve at organic social, or they're specifically looking to develop a like very distinguished brand for a specific creator. That's the specific problem that I'm trying to solve. So when you're looking for a mentor or a consultant or a coach or like a, whatever you want to call it, make sure that they actually specialize in the problem of your business. And I think that the mistake that people probably make, and the reason that like those just info in this business has such a terrible reputation, is because you're looking for consulting before you've actually started a business. And it's like, you can't, you should seek out consulting when you have a specific problem that you need to solve. And you should know that the person who you're hiring is a specialist at solving that specific problem. You shouldn't hire a consultant to like teach you how to build a business. Like that's not, it's so broad and there's so much that goes into that. And anybody who's actually good at that and who's going to invest the time into you to bring you up to the level that you want to be, you're not going to be able to afford them. And like, no one does that, right? Like if you wanted to hire me to do that, like to be like a CMO for hire for your organization, you would have to pay me more than $1 million a year. Cause that's the minimum that I'm going to make in a year for myself. So that's not feasible, right? That like true tip to tail business consulting does not exist for that exact reason. So I think that's an important distinction to make.
Oh, 100%. And if I'll throw in a little extra thing here. The reason that people should look for someone who also rejects clients because he doesn't think they are in a position to make money is also most of the time proof that the person is actually involved and interested in teaching them. Because what happens if you join a mentorship and there's 300 other people, they get like 50 clients, 100 clients a month, the owner is not in the fulfillment. So it's not his principles, it is his Claude project and the VA that has access to it, and the video course he scripted with Claude, which that surely is helpful. But for example, in my program, I only take on 10 people at a time for each cohort, right? Because I run them through like a 16-week training camp. It's all planned out with like week one is this SOP, then it's the back end here, then it's the marketing specifically here, then it's the acquisition, all that stuff. And that means I can actually focus on every single person. And if you wake me up at 3 in the morning and ask me, for example, how's Luke doing right now? I'll be like, I think he's like at 38K, but the the hooks and the videos are ass, which doesn't happen if you take on 100 clients at once. And also means your time isn't worth anything.
Okay, so let's talk OFM. Very quickly, I want to show you the exact framework that I've used to bring models from 0 followers and $0 to over 1 million followers and $310,000 a month on OnlyFans. Less than 1% of OnlyFans creators have anything resembling a viable social media strategy. They're just copying what they see OF creators doing on socials, getting terrible results, and wondering why they keep failing. And the critical missing piece for 99% of OnlyFans creators is a brand. I have broken down brand into 6 core components that can be applied to any creator, and exactly what you need to do with each component in the form of a free workbook called the Brand Blueprint. When you finish it, you will get a PDF with your creator's brand blueprint and the action steps that you need to take to execute it. My gift to you, completely free. My personal favorite use is to feed the entire PDF to an LLM to help with ideas for content, scripts. Sky's the limit. All you need to do is click the link in the description or go to facelessfrancis.com/resources and fill out the workbook, and it is yours forever. Enjoy. Did you just pop us in? Did you just pop a cheeky upper lippy?
I've been popping like 6 since we started this podcast, brother. What do you mean?
Freddie, you're so sneaky.
Yeah, it's annoying with the mask. You can't take Zins, man.
No, you can't. It's terrible. I just have to huff Adderall beforehand. So what I wanted to like, we could talk about YouTube and info all day, but I think ultimately like we're just kind of jacking each other off about stuff that you and I both already know that the audience probably doesn't care them. So I think that can be like an off-camera conversation, or maybe we do a full episode on like the state of info products in OFM. I think would be interesting. What I really want to talk to you about, and what I think both of our audiences will be interested in, is you have experience at every sort of scale and level of OFM. You're helping 16 agencies at a time go from that like 10 to 25K mark to that next level. And so what I want to pick your brain about is what the highest leverage things that you can do, kind of generally speaking, at every stage of growth, so that you can graduate from, let's say like, what is the journey from 0 to 10K look like? What does the journey from 10 to 50K look like? From 50 to 100K, and then from 100K to, $1 million a month or something. From my perspective, this is something that like, I think will be incredibly valuable to people, but I'm not able to. I basically skipped from, with my first model I was making, we made 15K in our first month. And it was just like, I had an exceptional model. She was talented. A lot of the reason that I like have the core beliefs about the industry that I do, and the reason that I work with only specific types of creators, is because I've seen how much faster you graduate when the quality is there on the content side. But for you, I think you have a much more systems oriented mindset and approach to the business. And you've actually seen and helped agencies scale from all of those levels in a very systematic way. So how do you want to approach this conversation? And like, I guess a good place to start would be, does that question even make sense? Like, should you think about graduating from stage to stage?
Oh, 100%. Yeah. Because like, this is like, I've been saying this so many times that most people don't understand that going from, let's say, 10 to 20K to 50, 60 to 100 to 200 to 500, you're not only playing at a different level, you're running a completely separate business. That's like
Yes.
going from having a bar fight at 3 a.m. to fighting Alex Pereira in a UFC championship. Like, it is completely different, and nothing you do at 15K should be done at 100K, for example. So the way I would approach this is, because the most helpful for the audience is going to be, let's just discuss each range and just pick a buzzword. For example, until 15K, the buzzword is systems or implementation or marketing. You know what I mean? So,
Yeah.
and then we can kind of elaborate on that. But I think that's going to be cool. It's like a mission statement for each revenue bracket.
That'd be awesome. Yeah, let's do it. So I'm starting, let's pretend I'm starting from absolute zero. I don't know anything about OFM, or I know a few things about the industry. Like, I've been watching YouTube videos. I think Andrew Tate's really cool, or something like that. Like, total newcomer, you probably know more about the average person that's entering this business than I do. What do you tell them? Like, what is their path to achieving, let's say, 10K a month from zero?
The overall buzzword here would be selection, because at this stage, you need 5% of the info that is available on the internet within an hour. Like, at this stage, look up OFM on YouTube, look up maybe some Telegram groups, and consume it for an hour. And build yourself just like an iPhone note to have like a piece of paper. Okay, what do I need to do to start OFM? Make the first thing right. You're going to find the info out there. There's starting OFM YouTube videos. There must be millions at this point. That's the thing.
I just did a video where like the hook for the video was like, there's 800 of these videos on YouTube. Here's all of them, or something like that.
Yeah, it's like the Buzz Lightyear meme. That's like a million. So
yes,
you gotta find the info that you need within the first 60 minutes. And what all the other agencies are doing is they keep digging. They think, oh wait, what if I found an even better way or an even faster approach? But the reality is, the implementation and the selection of the info you now have as your game plan. You have no experience. You need to just pick something, even if you're not entirely sure. That's the trap everyone falls into. They start once they feel this is for sure the right way.
Yeah.
Select one route that you heard the most times, that you think even logically probably makes the most sense, and that's the least sexy. The less sexy the method is, the more it works most of the time, pretty all the time. And then just run it for 3 months straight. If you're not successful, then switch the method. But people underestimate, like, finding a creator without having an agency, without knowing about the industry, without knowing sales. Maybe you're like a dumb 18-year-old or 17-year-old like I was. You just have to run the numbers. It's volume, and it's not having shiny object syndrome.
That's actually a really good point, and I think that's something that I'm really less capable of speaking of than most other people in this business is the acquisition piece. What do you recommend for somebody that wants to get into this industry, they're not sure how to get their first model? Like, what is, in your opinion, the best way to approach that?
Well, I could now say, well, do outreach, etc. It still works, but normal outreach doesn't work anymore. So we'd have to go into like the how to do outreach in 2026 thing, which again would be like 5 podcast episodes in a row. What I'm gonna
Yeah.
say is just pick the one strength that you have and at least try to make it work. For example, I can give you a few actually. 18-year-old kid knows nothing about the industry. Let's say you're 18-year-old, you have no clue about anything. All right. But you were a photographer before. That's the last thing you can grab on, right? Build up a photographing agency, buy a few followers, say, hey, I've worked with countless creators because you can't count because there were never any, right? Worked with countless creators in my photography, and I know every single one of them had the same problem, and I'm fixing it as an agency. Do you want to work with me? Pick something that makes you unique. That's the one thing. You need to stand out. And since you can't stand out from results, never use fake results, by the way. That's
Never,
pioneering
yeah.
as yeah, not even out of moral reasons, but it literally is just a bad idea. Pick something that makes you stand out. Even if you say I'm the biggest feminist ever, I care about the equality, which hopefully isn't a lie, right? So
We all love women on this podcast.
100%. That's why I joined actually. If we could talk about that a bit later as well. But that's the thing. It's anything to stand out, and that's going to be your best shot because you're going to learn sales and all that stuff out the way. But you're going to have to DM so many creators. One of them is dumb enough to say no, so you learn the industry and make your mistakes until you're ready to sign an actual creator. That's just the game.
Makes sense. Okay, so I've got my first creator. I found some semi-reliable source of information. I've been on the OFM grind for, let's call it 3 months. I'm starting to make some money. What is the next? This is when you start working with people, right? It's kind of that 10K mark.
50K. 50K.
50. Okay, 50 is your minimum. Sorry, I misunderstood. So getting from 0 to 10, basically going from 0 to 1 is like the first big cliff, right? That's like the first thing that people are going to struggle with. And as you said earlier, like 90% of people are probably just not going to make any money in this industry because that's just the nature of entrepreneurship. And most people are not, let's just say, not particularly competent or capable. So let's say that I'm one of the rare ones. I do make it to 10K a month. What is the next kind of level up from there? Like, what am I doing on a day-to-day business operations level where I've been able to make it to 10K? Now I'm trying to get to the next stage. What does that look like?
There's two buzzwords. I wanted to say one, but I lied to you because I'm going to pick two, right? So I'm betraying you right now. Two buzzwords are golden creator and backend. Now, I'm quickly going to elaborate on both because I think golden creator is a bit mysterious, right? To kind of grab everyone's attention. At 10 to 15K revenue, your problem is not marketing. Everyone thinks that. Out of 100 agencies I talk to at that level, even like the 30, 40K ones, they say, oh yeah, we don't get enough subs. Marketing is our problem. But it never is. Never. Because
See,
at this point, you have enough cash flow to live off of the industry. You can go full focus. You don't have staff. You don't have systems yet. You don't have all the things required to build up a creator to that next level. And you can't do that for creators that are not a golden creator. What that means is I go into detail. I'm going to quickly cover it. Take a spreadsheet and you rate your creator. You take all the data that you have, availability to the content, responsiveness, looks, is she unique? What USP does she have? Right? What other creators are in a similar niche make the same money? You do a whole sentiment analysis. You're going to pick one creator that you're fully focusing on, and this is who your attention goes to. This is where you build up all the systems. You build your blueprint. Because I'm going to cut back a bit into the future. This is the franchise that you're building for that one creator. Once that is systemized and perfected, and it doesn't happen overnight, it doesn't happen in 30 days, now you can just take the franchise, one store here for creator number 2, number 3, number 4. You pick your
yeah.
golden creator. And the second one is backend, where I already said nobody has marketing programs. And this is the equation nobody ever talks about. Backend is boring. I mean, have you done backend videos on YouTube so far?
No, I'm almost 100% marketing focused. The closest thing I get to back-end focused videos is when I'm talking to, like ChatStar, who's the number 4 chatting agency in the world right now, or to somebody like Matt from Hive Media, who's like run, again, $1 million agency, like horizontally scaling. He goes into great detail on how they run their back-end ops. But that's never really been my forte. I hired a chat agency as one of the first decisions that I made in the business. So that's not my area of expertise.
Got you. So I can tell you, don't do it if you want to.
Yeah.
Because they don't care. Backend is boring. That's like, for example, like eating healthy, eating your salad when you go to the gym, right? Nobody does it. It's like training abs in the gym. Like we all don't do it. We should,
Yes.
but we don't. Now, the problem is at 15K a month, for example, right? Your backend, I can guarantee your backend is shit. And you don't even know because you have not seen a backend yet. And you have to get, for example, let's make up random numbers that don't even make sense. You have to get 500 subs to make 15K. Cool. People don't understand that if you systemize your backend, you systemize your hiring, systemize your onboarding, your training of the chatters, the script, the tracking that you have, you now have to make, let's say, 100 subs to make 15 grand because the chatting is so much higher. So you just made 3 times the subscribers in terms of revenue. And you know this, it is unbelievably easier to make 3 times the money in the chatting than it is to make 3 times
100%.
the money in subs. So at this backend, yeah.
This is something that I really advocate strongly for people who are just getting started. They think that the solution to scaling revenue is to acquire more models. But I think that these are the two perfect things, especially for this stage, like an early beginner stage. And speaking to systems as well, I think the core underlying concept here is people are obsessed with systematizing things. They want to have like the routine. They want to lock everything in before they've actually figured out what a good system looks like. And if you try to scale a shitty system, you're going to get shitty results. So what you're saying is identify one creator and learn everything that you possibly can, like master everything that you possibly can on that one creator before you even think about scaling. You need to perfect the back end piece, because if you're not extracting the maximum revenue from every single customer that is hitting that single creator's page, why would you get more subs? Like, why would you focus on the marketing piece? That's something that I've never really thought about before. Obviously, like I'm extremely marketing forward, but that makes perfect sense. And I think it's because, again, I skipped so many steps by just hiring a chatting agency that performed phenomenally. I think I got really lucky in that sense. And so I was able to focus 100% on the marketing piece. And that might be something that I like instinctively over-index on. But what you're saying makes perfect sense. Like if you don't have that, if you're not hiring a chatting agency, and like if you're at 10 to 15K a month, chatting agencies aren't going to work with you. It's not worth their time. You have to figure that stuff out on your own. If you don't if you don't understand that first, and if you're not extracting max value out of every subscriber, why would you try? The solution is not to get more subscribers. It's to maximize revenue from the subscribers that you already have, then scale. That makes a lot of sense.
Oh, for sure. I'm going to add to that one quick point because you also touched on it. Like when you scale with shitty systems, like you have a bunch, you get problems, not money. But on the other hand, I think most people don't understand is when you get more creators, but your agency isn't fully systemized. And I don't mean fully systemized. Whoa, we actually got an SLP for that. I mean,
Yeah.
like Fortune 500 level systemized. You now run 5 separate agencies. You have 5 times the work. Like it's completely different. McDonald's is the best example. I mean, you as someone who spent a lot of years in the business can sing a song about how great McDonald's scaled, whatever. But McDonald's perfected one restaurant. They only sold burgers, soft drinks, and fries. And they perfected the tea. And then they just opened like a gazillion more restaurants. And they could just be like copy paste, do done, to quarter land, boom. McDonald's ran like a burger restaurant, a Chinese restaurant, sushi, enchiladas, right? They can't run 5 different things at the same time. Ideally, you build one system with the creator with the most potential, and you just plug
Yes.
all the other ones in, and that's how you scale. Yeah. So the answer is more creators, but after a very, very important step that 95% of agencies always skip. Yeah.
And I think that it's like you need to spend probably you give me an idea of what the time frame is. In my opinion, I think that like you need to spend almost your entire first year, single creator, master, like build everything out for that creator, really deeply understand the business in a principled way by investing really heavily in that. I love golden creator, I think is the perfect word for it, as opposed to I'm just going to take whatever model I can get my hands on and she sucks. And I think the solution is just to get more shitty models. I think it's a terrible way to learn the business. You're going to get way less yield out of every individual model. Here's what I think in a nutshell, the approach that you're advocating for is very similar to what I do in marketing, but you're just applying it way more broadly to the entire business, which is you have to scale to understand quality before you even think about scaling to quantity. Quantity is almost never the solution. The metaphor that I use in the course is, and because I see this all the time on the marketing side, right? You have guys that are like, this account only gets 200 views for every piece of content. I need 10 more accounts. It's like, no, you need to figure out how to get 200,000 views on one piece of content, you fucking idiot. Like, why would you even think about scaling more accounts when the content is the problem? And so, yeah, the metaphor that I use in the course is you can have the most efficient manufacturing process in the world. You can be able to make 1,000,000 units of something every single minute. But if the thing that you are producing is dog shit, there's no natural buyers of dog shit. So if you have the most efficient dog shit production facility in the world, good for you. You have no buyers. You just invested all of this time into developing a system that has no commercial viability. So I think that that's a great, these are great things for like beginners to really understand at a deep level.
Yeah, and I can give you one business example. Maybe you've heard about that, but did you know Chick-fil-A makes more money than McDonald's?
Really? No, I did not know that.
Not in volume, but the average Chick-fil-A store is more profitable than the average McDonald's because
Interesting.
they quality over quantity, brother, all day. Because they just perfected one thing. They sell chicken sandwiches, soft drinks, and that's
Yeah,
all.
it makes sense. And then you just vertically integrate yeah, that makes perfect sense. Yeah.
100%. Yeah, the most important thing, 100%.
Okay, so let's just say we're at year one. I have my golden creator making, we're making like, let's call it 15 to, let's say we hit that 50K mark, that threshold for working with you. So we've made it from 0 to 10. We've made it from 10 to 50. We have the one creator. We've been doing it for a year. We're pretty good at chatting. We're really beginning to develop a deep understanding of the business. How do I go from 50 to 100 now? You probably noticed that social media has gotten a lot harder. You probably think this is because platforms are anti-OnlyFans, or you're creating accounts wrong, or something about your link in bio is killing your reach. But I want to tell you from the bottom of my heart that you're not failing for any of these reasons. You're failing because you fucking suck at making content. Yes, back in the glory days, you could spam the same thirst traps and trending audio as every other e-thought on the internet and get millions of views. But those days are over, and they are never coming back. If you want to be successful on socials today, you need an actual brand and you need good content. And both of those things take time, skill, and most importantly, a coherent system. Now, you can build the system the hard way like I did. Thousands of hours of research, over 1,000,000 words of scripts written, and years of trial and error to figure out what actually works. Or you can skip the years of mistakes and just use my exact system, which has brought multiple models from 0 to the top 0.01% and generated billions of views and over $10 million in revenue for my consulting clients. That system is called $1,000,000 Brands, and it teaches you everything about organic social from start to finish, how to build performant brands, make content people actually want to watch, and turn followers into subscribers with LTV so high, you will be gooning. I could rattle off everything that's in the course, video modules, tools, a community that includes multiple top 10 OFM agencies. I could tell you that there are students who see 40% revenue growth within 30 days of finishing. But I'd encourage you to check it out for yourself at facelessfrancis.com instead. Or you can keep posting dog shit, blame the algorithm, and watch other people make millions of dollars from your cell in 200 view jail. Your call.
I will say one thing. It was like lost in the translation, or maybe the mask. I meant my threshold is 15, so like 1.5, but it doesn't matter.
5. Okay.
It's a very good thing. For, let's say, what is our goal? Let's say the magic 6 figures, right? We want to go to the 100. We want to essentially 2x the revenue. We're at 50K. The buzzword on that level is numbers, and probably 20 times as many numbers as you, as the average agency at that level, are currently tracking right now. Because here's why all the agencies get stuck at the 40 to 50K plateau. And I'd love to hear take on it, because we're also slowly getting into your range of people you work with, right? But they are making decisions on a broad level now, because at 50K, you have employees, you have managers, you have the creators, the taxes. They're making them based on feelings, and they're guessing, which you can get away with that at 10K if you brute force your way through it, because it doesn't affect you as much. Every day you learn something new. You think it works. That's the mistake, right? You think you make more money guessing, because you also improve as a businessman. But when you're into the industry, you now know it all, right? The knowledge at a certain point, at this point, you need to make informed decisions based on data, based on facts. And you don't get this without tracking every single thing in the agency. We're not talking about shedding ratio or how much views we get. We're talking about, I'll give you an example, what we did at the 50K range 4 or 5 years ago. And as an organic marketer, you're going to love this. You upload, let's say, 100 videos per month on this one creator. Every single hook, every single body, every single CTA, every single background outfit is in a dedicated tracking sheet with the watch time, the click-through rate, the views, the comments, how many of them were positive, how many were emojis. This is the type of level we're talking about here. That's the first step. And the other one is then understanding it and running the boring old analysis what we all hate from school with what is the facts? What could that tell me? What is the do's? What should I do more? What should I stop doing? Right? If I have a golf creator, I should probably stop wearing white outfits. The numbers tell me that. If I have a massage creator, I should probably have very warm lighting. Now we get into the actual nerd stuff, right?
The granular stuff, yes.
Yeah, that nobody likes to hear about and nobody watches the videos about that. But this is how you go from 50 to 100 to 150, not like more models or AI OFM, starting Reddit. That's all fallacies. That's all fugazi. Yeah. We'd love to hear your take on it because we're getting more into the organic side.
I agree 100%. I think that, a lot of what I teach, like the course gets really granular on a lot of this stuff. And it's, really granular for OFM. So like there's three modules in the course that are just about lighting. It's just about what is when you're constructing a scene, what are you communicating with the background? What are you communicating with the outfit? What are you communicating with the lighting? What does the temperature of the lighting tell you? The composition of the frame. So like my background and like my passion is filmmaking. And so I approach everything when it comes to organic social with like an extremely fine eye for detail on like, these are all of the things that you don't realize how much they matter, but especially with organic content, it's all of these tiny details that really start to move the needle once you're at that level where you're like looking for incremental things to improve in order to achieve that 6-figure, 7-figure monthly earnings. And analysis, I think, is an incredibly important part of that. You're not going to be able to make informed decisions. Like, you can know everything about creating good content, but if you're not measuring what actually performs and you're just sort of going based on your gut, you're not going to be successful. I think that part of like maybe something that's really good for people who are at this level to understand is you're going to, at this point, especially if you're in organic marketing, you're going to have started to develop some creative instincts, but you can't let your ego get like wrapped up in like, there have been things like pieces of content that I've written where I watch it and I'm like, this is the funniest fucking thing. Like, this is going to be such a banger. This is going to get fucking 30 million views. Like, I'm laughing my ass off while we're recording it. And like, while we're editing it, we're like literally sitting next to the editor and we're like wheezing and we post it and it gets like 1 million views and it's just not, it performs well, but it's just nowhere near where we thought it would be. That means that you don't make that again. Like, obviously there's more, you test different iterations, like you need to be principled in your testing, but like if that piece of content just continues to not perform at your level of expectation, or that style of content isn't performing at the level of expectation, or whatever your performance metrics are, and you need to set those too. Like, that's the other part of analysis is like, this is something that I go deep on in the course too, of how to actually measure social media performance. What are the metrics that matter? What are the consistent benchmarks that you need to hit? But you have to be able to walk away from an idea that you're convinced is good if the performance, like if the actual analysis shows you otherwise. And I think that that's probably something that people get a little bit too wrapped up in around this level, is they start this is like really the danger zone, is like when you start to really think you know what you're doing, you have to continue to be guided by data. So I think that's a great, yeah.
And not letting ego get in the way is so important, because at a lower level, you don't really think about that because you have no ego, right? It never worked before. You just do what you're told, fine. But especially at that level, I can tell you a story. You can 100% relate, right? You have to imagine February, I think 2 years ago. Yeah. February 2 years ago, I'm doing all the stuff I like doing in marketing. New crazy ideas no one's ever done. I'm scripting away, when you have like a pen and it's like in flames. And I'm thinking, I'm currently like let's say Van Gogh of short form content. This account is banned right now, right? But look at the account. That was the craziest ideas anyone ever had. Worked okay. Trader was doing 120 a month. We got like 20K extra, but like you said, nowhere near. And this is what I like doing. Next month, there was this dancing trend, 2nd of March. We post a basic ass dancing video with a funny caption, which is what I tell everyone not to do. Because dancing videos are the epitome of I have no marketing ideas. Video goes 2 million views. Okay, cool. But I was like, yeah, it happens. They do another one of my crazy ideas again, 50K views. And I was like, God damn it. Like, do I do what I think is right? Do I do what I tell everyone to do? Or do I just spam the fuck out of dancing videos and make money? That's when exactly that happens. And you know what happened? We posted this exact dance the other 28 days of the month, every single day. We just spammed the fuck out of it. Creator went to 320 grand in revenue. And afterwards, I was like, fuck this, man. Like, you know what I mean? Always the videos you think are gonna fail, they go to
Yeah.
10 mil. The videos you think, wow, they fucking fail because the data doesn't lie, but you have to go around your egos. You couldn't have said it better. Yeah.
I think that that's something too that like you just have to contend with the reality that sometimes the thing that you think is absolute dog shit is actually what people want to watch. Your job is not to, in terms of like, if you're in a solo creative endeavor, like I'm actually planning on starting a new YouTube channel soon that's like just personal stuff. It's going to be like critique of culture, aesthetics, stuff like that. Stuff that nobody in the OFM industry cares about. Probably nobody on the fucking planet cares about. I'm making it for me. It's like whether it performs or not is really none of my concern. When you are making content that is for somebody's livelihood, the model is dependent on you. You're providing a service to the model. Your responsibility is not to your creative like ego. Your responsibility is to deliver a high quality service to the client. And if the data is telling you that the stupid dance trend or the, you know, the whatever the thing is that you hate doing the most that like actually works, you have to do it. Like you're obligated to do it for the sake of the business, for the sake of the client. And it's like, it's just the right thing to do, even though it sucks.
Yeah. And I think that translates into the entire stage, not only marketing, right? But
Yeah.
I can tell you an example, right? The OFM West, right? The systemization we do. The first 4 weeks are setting up tracking, setting up the basics, the advanced backend stuff, hiring. We don't get to marketing until week 4 or 5.
Interesting. Okay.
Collectively, everyone complains about that. Every single one. Because
Yeah.
of course you want to learn how I talk a bunch of shit about marketing, same as you, right? Everyone's excited for our marketing methods, but it's not about what feels good. And I always tell people, like in the first call, this is not going to be sexy. This is not
Yep.
going to feel good, right? Same as when, for example, we go into bed with a female, we probably tell her the same. But this is going to be the most boring, most draining process you probably ran through. But
Yep.
you come out with it making 100, 200K. Do you want that or not? And it's like exactly like you said. We all want to wake up in the morning, shoot crazy content on a water slide, driving a monster truck, setting up flames, right? The cool marketing stuff. You want to, I can guess it's the same for you. You want to set up the best camera with the best lighting, with the best background for your videos because you have that standard to yourself. But you could make the same video with your phone and will probably get views. And you hate to admit that. Yeah, because at the end, it's not about doing what feels good because then we'd all be doing AI, OFM and posting try reels, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
100%. Okay. So now let's say that we finally achieve that 100K mark. You're somebody who's running a, you know, $1 million a month agency. So like that's a pretty big jump. When I left OFM, I was making just under $500,000 a month. So I never actually achieved that 7-figure goal. I've worked with a lot of agencies who have on the creative side. And it's been really rewarding and it's really cool to see like the level when you're at that level and the level, I think people really radically underestimate like the level of optimization that you have to achieve in order to get there. You don't hit 1 million a month by accident. It just doesn't, it does not ever happen. What is the biggest difference? And this is going to be more of like a personal question. I don't even think this is like, I think that the thing that everybody has to do to get to that level is probably going to look a little bit different. How did you bridge that gap? Like when did you have your first 6-figure month? And then what did you do to change the agency side of the business to go from that to where you are now?
Got you. The first 6-figure month, I think that was the end of 2021 or a bit
Okay.
earlier. You know how this all goes with numbers in this industry.
Yeah.
And at the end, in the like third or fourth quarter of 2021. And from then on, we were even able to scale up to 300K. But then this was the first time in my life I was stuck in the agency because again, I started super early. That's not because I'm a good businessman, but I started in 2020. Twerking videos got 5 million views and like 2,000 paid subs. They all had a $400 LTV. All right. Like I wasn't that good back then. Now I was stuck at 300K, which sounds cool to most agencies making less than that. But keep in mind, I was at a point where I was working 15 hours a day to keep the whole thing alive. My agency was built with duct tape. As soon as a shadow left or a creator quit, we dropped back to 200 or 250. That we had to go back up. Now, my first instinct, as everyone as an entrepreneur would be as their first instinct, is I tried more creators, more marketing, more videos, more chatters, more scripts. Everything. I ticked off the entire list of things I knew from my past would bring more revenue. You just work through the list. Now, at the end of the list, I came to the last point. We fully implemented it. We were still at DK. And I sat in my office that day after, again, you know how it is, 15-hour days, not sleeping, not talking to your family. I was popping like 2 of these per day. And I was 30 days away from creating the industry. I said to myself, like, this is the last month. I just created my own 9 to 5, which is paid okay, but I created my own 9 to 5. If I leave for one day, the entire agency goes down.
Booked. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly, right. Now, this is when, and I'm gonna skip a bit how we got out of it before I pull on the tears a bit here. The answer to this and the way we actually ended up scaling to 1 million is I just completely got out of the agency. That was what I need. Because I realized then, it's just like the overall broad spectrum, I'm coming to an end here, right? As a CEO of any enterprise, but especially OFM, because this is what I can talk about, you have 3 or 4 hours of productive work every day, and everything else is kind of half-assing it. As humans, we can't work more than 3 or 4 hours fully productive.
Yeah.
Everything after that drops off. Yeah. Which I hate to admit because I love to work long days. And then I realized what I was actually doing the entire day, right? Answering all the chatter problems, communicating with the creators. They have a problem, I fix it, right? Then I try to work on something. The chatter calls me, my manager calls me, uploading the videos, giving feedback here. And from now, today's standpoint, I only spend time on 3 things in the agency. That's creator acquisition, getting better creators, hiring better employees, and systemizing things. Everything outside of that is losing me money because I keep the agency alive. The overall answer is how we were able to scale from 300K stock for months on end is I put obviously the right people in charge, put the systems in charge with the right data that I then had, and I just offloaded everything that was not putting the agency forward. And we transitioned from a Jenga tower agency, right? You pull out one thing, the entire agency collapses, to a Lego agency. All the blocks
Eh,
holding together. You can remove a creator, a chatter, a supervisor, but it's the core structure still stands. And that took me a long time to learn because as you realize, like not everyone can be as overly successful as you're speedrunning the industry, which is mind blowing to me. Like I have nothing but respect for that because like
yeah.
it's crazy. I've never seen anyone pull it like that. But I had to learn all these like very, very fast. And I did so many mistakes on the way, you know? So that was something I should have realized at 50K, but I wasted 1.5 years of my life. But in the end, you better late than never.
100%. And I think that like a takeaway there, and this is something that I've been trying to like figure out how to articulate to my audience more clearly. I think that there just tends to be like an over reliance on other people's information in this business. You made the mistakes, right? Like you have to, in some, like you can sit here and tell that entire story. You could sit here and tell me the entire story of like every single mistake that you made. Somebody could listen to that. And at the end of the day, like the mistakes that they can learn from that. Like it's important to learn from other people's mistakes. When somebody is transparent with you and they're giving you the opportunity to learn from their mistakes, you should probably pay attention to them. But at the end of the day, like you have to also make your own mistakes. You have to be willing to like take risks and go out and like suffer and try things, or you're never actually going to be able to improve the business because the problems that you encounter might be similar in texture to the problems that you encountered or the problems that I encountered. And we might have solutions that worked for us, but I think that there's like a real lack of emphasis in this industry on like just going out and trying stuff. This is something that I, especially on the content side, that I deal with all the time in like my Telegram group. It's people ask the same 10 questions. It's like, hey, this piece of content like didn't perform well. Why not? And it's like, well, because it fucking sucks. And I'm going to sit here. I'm going to do you the favor of breaking down every reason that it absolutely fucking sucks. But like, you can't come back and ask me, okay, well then what should I do? What you should do is try something else. Try a million other things. Like just go, stop asking me fucking questions and just go do shit. Make your own mistakes. Eventually you're going to figure out something that does work and you'll be able to replicate it. But I'm not going to be able to, unless you're willing to pay me, which you're not, like, I'm not going to be able to sit here with you all day and like tinker and, you know, pull out all the little plugs and make all the little micro adjustments that you need to make in order to make this work for you. It's the shortcut. I think it's like the shortcut mentality. This is what I want to like close the conversation out on. The problems that you see in the industry, like the biggest sort of like broad, what are the mistakes that you see everybody making? And then also, what do you see as the future of the industry?
I mean, it's a good question. And I think there's 2 answers to that, right? Because on the one hand, there's the side of me that says the demand is always going to be there. It's the second oldest business in the book, right? There's always going to be a way to monetize that. On the other hand, that's pretty much collectively what everyone says about an industry closely before it dies. You can ask anyone before 2008, before the market crashed, well, there's always going to be a market. And it's like,
Yeah.
well, I catch myself thinking about that. But realistically, I've talked about this to a lot of people. So the second most asked question you ever get, how do you think OFM is going to progress? The easiest way is just like right now in OFM, there's 20% of agencies, I just make up rough numbers, that make the majority of the money. Let's say 60% that make a fairly good amount of money, right? We're talking 10 to 50K more or less. And then there's, I don't know, the bottom 20% that don't succeed. And the only thing that's going to happen is like the agencies that make the majority of the money are going to get less and less, and the agencies making fair money are going to get less and less. So if OF gets banned tomorrow, worldwide ban, the site shuts down, right? What's going to happen? The agencies who follow your advice, who follow my advice, that build actual brands for the creator with content based on something else than just sexuality, what are we going to do? We can drop a fan sleeve, we can drop a clothing store, we can drop a Patreon and make the same amount of money the next day. But the agencies that post sexual content with salary creators and AI, out of business, right?
That's all
So
they have, yeah. If
yeah,
that's the only thing, if that's the core of your business, and it's, it's funny to say that, like, we're in the OnlyFans business, but it's the insane overemphasis on like hypersexual content is like the reason that, people are like, I'm dealing with these Instagram bans. It's like, it's your fault. Like, it's 100% your fault. You've got your entire strategy, the entire strategy of the industry is like shake your tits and your ass around on camera in a microkini on a platform that 3 billion people use that they don't want that content on there. What do you think is going to happen? Like, the entire industry, people, everybody who complains about the ban wave, I'm just like, this entire industry has collectively shot itself in the foot. When this is what I want to close the conversation out on. My kind of thesis and my biggest gripe, I think the biggest mistake that people, like, the missed opportunity in this space. On the agency side, I think it's something that needs to be incorporated into every agency's offer and like framing. And then on the model side, I think it's just something that every creator needs to be aware of. OnlyFans solved the creator monetization problem. Everybody wants to be an influencer, right? Everybody wants to, something like 63% of Gen Z wants to be like content creators for a living. Everybody consumes content every day. Everybody admires content creators. Everybody wants to be a content creator. But if your special talent is comedy, it's not obvious how you make money doing that, right? Like, you sell tickets to comedy shows. Unless you're Shane Gillis, you're not making a fucking living doing that, right? So OnlyFans comes along, and the basic premise is, in my opinion, OnlyFans is this thing that says you can do the thing that you love most in the world, and you can potentially make millions of dollars a year doing it. What better offer is there than that? And yet, I don't think anybody in the industry sees it that way. I think they see it as like, oh, it's just a quick way to make money, and you just have to be a bimbo, and that's the solution, right? Like, we fixed it, we solved it, guys. Like, you just have to be hypersexual on camera to do this thing, and it's like, no. In reality, my philosophy on this industry is, from the model's perspective, this is an opportunity for you to do something that you legitimately enjoy. And if you can make that thing interesting for people to watch on camera, you have the opportunity to be a millionaire. And then I think the other side of that is you're providing genuine value to people. And it's like, the idea of niche is, I think, very misunderstood in this industry, insofar as you have to appeal to a specific demographic. And it's actually much better, in my opinion, to have the concept that I like to call it niche saturation. So let's say that your niche is, the example that I like to use is like fishing. I don't fish. I don't know why. It's like the first thing that pops in my head. But let's say that you have a female creator that like just goes out in a bass boat on a pond and fishes all day. You would rather have 100% of the people that are, even if there's only like, let's call it 100,000 people that are interested in that. It's much larger, obviously, but let's just make up numbers. If you get all 100,000 people that are interested in that to watch every single one of her pieces of content, you have a dedicated audience that is never going to expire, and they can only get that content from that creator. That is so much better than having a creator with 10 million followers. 9 million of them are in India. They're never going to spend $1 because all you do is this on camera all day, right? So I think that that's the big shift in the industry that I think people need to recognize. That's like the big trend that I've identified, is that the more niched down you get, like the more narrow your focus, that's the direction social media is going. It's all interest-based. It's all about delivering extremely high quality content in a specific niche to a specific audience. That's kind of like the modality that I'm preaching right now. Off.
that's why I'm still going to do that, but I'm going to elaborate a bit more because I wanted to ask you how you think about this, because you look at all the platforms, right, sell porn to a certain degree, adult content. It's Pornhub, Fansly, OnlyFans, right? All the sites, all the ways you can get to it. Holy shit, you just despawned, my friend. Just despawned from the camera.
I
Holy
was
shit.
taking a sip of water.
Well, I'll remember you can't just drink through a mask. Yeah, my bad, bro. But all right, you look at all the porn platforms, right? And you think about why is OnlyFans the one to do it? Why wasn't it Pornhub, right? Why wasn't it Patreon or all the sites that come before? And the one thing that OnlyFans did so successfully is they became mainstream, they became a household name, and they removed the shame from being on there. Because this is also to tie into your point in a sec, because I'm going to draw a correlation. There's a lot of people jerking off, let's call them perverts, right? People who consume porn on a daily basis. You can make thousands of dollars competing with them, right? With this small circle of people who jerk off to anything that moves. And
Yeah.
sometimes that's not moving, but we're not going to talk about that. But you're gonna make millions of dollars getting people that they're too ashamed to go on Pornhub, right? They don't watch porn, that are just into fishing. They're just into music. They're just
Yes.
into golf girls. They just like it and convert them to it. And the sexuality is just a byproduct.
Yes.
Is OnlyFans made happen is there is no shame attached to being on OnlyFans for the average guy. Everyone talks about it in school, right? How when she's dropping an OnlyFans, huh?
Yeah.
It's just like going on Kick or on YouTube. You just here's an OnlyFans, cool. And this is, you have to understand the audience for OnlyFans isn't people who jerk off on a daily basis, just looking at titties on Instagram. The audience that spends the most, actually, like the audience that all of us should be competing for is the people that watch fishing content on Instagram. They don't have porn. They fall in love with you. And you just, the sexuality is like the spices on the food, right? Yeah, the cherry on top. That's how I see the industry change. And this is why platforms like Fansly, as great as they are, right? We also use them. But this is why these OF alternatives, I meet every single OF and adult convention I go to. There's 50 people. You can play a drinking game. Every time someone comes to you, yeah, we have an OnlyFans competitor site and we take 1% less cut and we care about the agency.
Yeah.
Oh, you even have a built-in CRM, brother. That's cool. But this is what they don't understand. It's not about the platform in itself. It's about the household name and people feeling happy to click on an OF link, because most people, when they click on Pornhub, they're ashamed. And this is why they don't do it. Most people, but they click on OF and they're like, oh, I get to talk to my girlfriend today. Oh yeah, I'm going to jerk off. That's how I see the industry changing. I'd love to hear your take on it from like also a brand perspective.
I'm not necessarily sure that I agree with like the no shame part. I do think that there is still like a shameful element that might be a product of like just being inside of the industry. Like it's obviously a part of our everyday lives, right? From the people that I interact with that like have, you know, porn addictions, or and it's not necessarily exactly who you're talking about, but like the people that I think there's still a very negative connotations around OnlyFans. But I think the place where you're absolutely correct is that the best OnlyFans customer, irrespective of the shame piece, the best OnlyFans customer is not the guy who's looking to jerk off. It's the guy who's in love with the creator. Your job, your responsibility, in my opinion, the best OnlyFans managers understand this, especially the guys who are vertically scaling. Your job is to make somebody fall in love with your creator. And in that sense, the content is the product. This is a very unique advantage of OnlyFans, of like OnlyFans marketing, is that, you know, something like Pringles, like a can of chips or whatever, right? The chip is the product, and like marketing is how they get you to buy the chip. But you don't have a relation, you know, you don't see a Pringles ad and you're like, wow, that ad made me really happy or whatever, or like that. Most of the time it's just there to remind you that Pringles exists, right? But with OnlyFans, you have this incredibly unique opportunity. And I think this is the reason that I'm so like dogged about the value of organic marketing specifically for OnlyFans, is that you can get people to fall in love with your creator before they ever touch the OnlyFans page. And that primes them to spend. And when you do that well, you have somebody, when you actually cultivate a relationship, where you have the creator that's looking directly into the camera and saying, I'm interested in the same things that you are. I'm your dream girl. I'm the person that like you want to be with, that you've dreamed about, that you fantasize about every single day. By the time they get to that OnlyFans page, they know that they have one shot with that creator, right? From their perspective. From our perspective, it's like, we're going to serve you no matter what. As long as you're willing to spend money, I don't give a shit. But from their perspective, they have one shot and they don't want to fuck it up. And whatever you ask of them, they're going to do, with whether that's a dollar amount, whether that's like a, you know, I've seen a lot of like chat agencies use like these devotionals where it's like, you're my goddess, whatever the tactic is, ultimately that person is going to do whatever they believe is required. Let me try not to lose focus here. Whatever, man. There we go.
Back.
They're going to do whatever they believe is required to make sure that the creator is in love with them as well, right? Or expresses that in some way. That is how you like build truly devoted audiences. And you would way rather have 100 diehard guys who are truly in love with the creator than 10,000 free subs who are gonna, who have an average LTV of $5. I'd rather have 100 subs with an LTV of $100 or something like that. So I think that that's like those are the two. I think those two things go hand in hand. I think you articulated it really well. That to me seems like the direction that the fan page industry needs to go in, because all of your bottom tier consumers, like the guys who, your transactional spenders, the guys who, have like, let's say like for me, like a paid page has an average LTV of $50 or something. You're like $10 to $20 LTV spenders. I think all of that gets eaten up by these AI like erotic companion products. That's who you're really competing with now. And so if you want to survive in the fan page business, you need to have a really high quality, really premium product. And that product is a relationship with the creator. And that starts with the content. So that's kind of my like thesis about the direction that the industry is going to go in.
For sure. And you made a good point, because you're right. Like, let me rephrase that, because you're right. There is obviously shame attached to it, right? So if I had to kind of correct my statement here a bit, because you also made me think about that. Like, it's kind of like all the normal porn sites that are out there, they're like smoking cigarettes, right? Your parents told you cancer. Everyone around you tells you cancer. If you pull up a cigarette pack on the table, people are gonna be like, "Well, that guy's unhealthy," right? OF is just vaping. It's still not good for you, and you kind of know that, but it's just more smooth, and there's less entry barrier. Because for me to start smoking, there's a very big friction point. I know, like, oh man, that's gonna really take a toll on my health. But for me to smoke a vape once, I'd be
It's
like,
just water,
well,
bro.
strawberry,
Yeah.
vitamin, I guess, right? So it removes so much friction from the decision to actively consume porn, because you don't consume porn at the subway unless you're, I don't know, Chicago or something, right?
It gives you like a justification. It's like, I'm
Yeah,
not like a sexual pervert. I just want to have a relationship with this girl.
yeah.
Who
Per
doesn't want that? Like everybody wants to have somebody they care about.
Yeah, the barrier of entry is so much lower, so you can't get that 50-year-old guy that's providing for his family on Pornhub that easy. He's like, "Oh, man, that's it. Porn addiction." On OF, like, "Oh, yeah, let me talk to this chick." The barrier of entry is so much lower, and this is, like, what you exactly described, right? You now have the opportunity to get the everyday average Joe to your creator. You can't do that with Pornhub that
No,
easy. That easy. Yeah, so I think that's a very good correction from your end as well. I like that.
I think this is a good place to tie things off. I would definitely love to continue the conversation off camera. Thanks again for coming on the show. We will definitely have to do this again. I think we'll take a poll from the audience and see what they want to hear us talk about. But I have a feeling that this is going to do very well, and people are going to be very interested in what you have to say. So appreciate you taking the time out of your day. I know you're very busy, and it's been a pleasure speaking with you, man.
Man, the pleasure was mine. I appreciate the invite. You're the only OFM channel I watch. I'm just going to state that here. You can clip that, put it on Instagram, right? But it was a fucking pleasure, man. I can't wait to do this again. And then nothing but the best for you, all right?
Likewise, man. All right, have a great rest of your day.
You too, man. Bye bye.